Welcome back to Retro Rules Vault, where horsepower never dies, and because modern cars forgot what muscle means. I'm Retro Vault 4, your guide through chrome and combustion. Today we're unleashing the 1967 Buick Skylark GS 400, a gentleman in a leather jacket. Smooth, stylish, and ready to throw punches with a V8 growl. Let's get into it. Here's a fun twist of engine history you might have missed. While the 1967 marked the farewell tour for Buick's legendary 401 cubic inch nailhead V8, the Skylark GS 400 was already moving on. Kind of like showing up to prom with a fresh haircut while your classmates are still rocking pompadours. Now, don't get us wrong, the nailhead was a beast in its day. With its vertically oriented valves and narrow head design, it earned a name that sounded more like a garage tool than an engine. But by the mid-60s, its tech was starting to feel like a rotary phone in a smartphone world. Enter the new 400 cubic inch big block V8, a cleaner burning, better breathing bruiser that powered the GS 400. It was a modern redesign, wider heads, better airflow, and tuned for both muscle and manners. Buick didn't just retire the nailhead. They handed it a gold watch and said, "Thanks for the torque," and unleashed a new era of performance. So, the next time someone says nailhead, you can nod respectfully, but then point to the GS 400 and said, "Yeah, but this is what came next." That muscle evolved, and Buick was already shifting into high gear. The Buick Skylark GS 400 didn't just graduate. It got its diploma, tossed the cap, and roared off the stage in a cloud of rubber and class. No longer just a trim level, the GS 400 became its own model line, offering as a coupe, a hardtop coupe, or a convertible for those who like their muscle with a little birdies. Design-wise, Buick gave it a fresh face and rear end for 1967, sharpening its lines like a barber with a vengeance. Simulated hood scoops gave it that extra "don't mess with me" flair, while the classic Buick fender ventiports returned like an old-school badge of honor. Unlike the standard Skylark, which wore fender skirts like a debutante at a sock hop, the GS 400 bared its rear wheel housings with pride, rocking F70 by 14 wide oval red or white striped tires like muscle car wore paint. And thanks to new federal safety regs, all 67 GM cars, including this beast, came with collapsible steering columns, dual chamber master cylinders, four-way flashers, and safety steering wheels. Because when you're flying down the road with a 400 cubic inch V8, a little safety never hurts. Think of it as a muscle car with manners. Under the hood, the Skylark lineup offered a buffet of V8s, each one with its own flavor of fury. Starting with the base Skylark, you got a 300 cubic inch small block V8, good for 210 horsepower at 4,600 RPM, and 310 foot-pounds of torque at just 2,400 RPM. Had a 3.8 inch bore, 3.4 inch stroke, and a 9.0 to 1 compression ratio. With its cast iron block and head, and a Rochester 2GC2 two-barrel carburetor, it was a dependable meat and potatoes option. Step up to the GS 340 and you were cooking with a bit more spice. You could get a 340 cubic inch in V8 making 220 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque, or opt for the higher compression version dishing out 260 horsepower and 365 foot-pounds. Both use the same 3.8 inch bore and 3.9 inch stroke, but the hotter version packed a 10.25 to 1 punch and a Rochester 4MV 4-barrel carburetor. But the GS 400? That was Buick's sledgehammer and a silk glove. A 400 cubic inch big block V8 pumping out 360 horses and at 5,800 RPM and a massive 440 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200. Same 10.25 to 1 compression, same cast iron bones, but with a bigger bore and serious appetite. It roared through the Rochester 4-barrel like a linebacker at a buffet. When it came to putting all that Buick muscle to the pavement, the 67 GS 400 gave drivers a few flavors of fun or fury depending on how you liked your gears. Standard was a 3-speed manual, perfect for those who like their driving raw, gritty, and with just enough challenge to keep things interesting, like wrestling a grizzly while wearing Sunday shoes. For those wanting to roll their own gears like a hot knife through horsepower, there was the 4-speed manual. That gearbox turned every green light into a countdown to glory and every shift into a badge of honor. This wasn't just driving. It was a conversation between man and machine, punctuated by clutch kicks and grins. Prefer a smoother ride without all the footwork? Enter the 3-speed roto-hydromatic automatic transmission. It did the shifting for you with the kind of smoothness that felt like it was buttered by Grandma herself. This wasn't some sloppy slush box. It was Buick's way of saying, we can be classy and fast. Whichever you chose, the GS400's drivetrain was ready to launch you forward with authority. Whether you were banging gears or letting the hydromatic do the talking, the Skylark never stuttered. It strutted. The 1967 GS400 didn't just look tough, it had the bones to back it up. Built on GM's A-body platform, it featured a sturdy, full-perimeter frame that was more rigid than your grandpa's opinions. This wasn't some floppy jellyfish of a chassis. It was a rock-solid engineered to handle that big block muscle without flinching. Up front, it rode an independent suspension with coil springs and upper and lower control arms, like a gymnast with reinforced knees. Out back, it ran a solid rear axle with coil springs, delivering a ride that was surprisingly civilized for a muscle car. It could take corners without begging for mercy, yet still cruised like a living room on wheels. Buick engineers turned the GS400 suspension for a balance of comfort and control, not just for doing dragstrip heroics. It didn't hop or chatter like some of its wilder Mopar cousins. It planted itself, squatted down, and took off like it meant it. Tossed in front and rear stabilizer bars, and you had a car that could hustle through curves without feeling like it was about to tip over like a cow in the night. Strong, balanced, and power-hungry, that was the Skylark GS400's chassis in a nutshell. Step inside the GS400 and you weren't just hopping into a muscle car. You were sliding into something that knew how to flex and finesse. Standard models came with a cloth and vinyl combo on the front bench seats, which felt like the best of both worlds. Comfort for the cruise and durability for the drag. Opt for the convertible, and it came wrapped in all vinyl, because let's face it, cloth and sudden rain showers don't really mix. For those wanting a little extra swagger though, all vinyl trim and bucket seats with the center console were available. That setup didn't just separate the driver from the passenger, it said, this is my domain. The console gave you a place for your elbow and your pride, especially when rolling through gears. The dashboard features softer interior surfaces and recessed controls, which wasn't just stylish, it was safety conscious too. Less sharp edges meant fewer bruises when your enthusiasm outpaced your cornering skills. The instrument panel was laid out like a mission control center for the road, with controls tucked in just the right places. All in all, the GS400's cabin was a refined brawler, muscle car attitude wrapped in Buick signature comfort and mid-century cool. Yes, the 67 GS400 absolutely used a differential, because all that power had to go somewhere, and lighting up one tire just wouldn't cut it. Buick gave it a trusty 10-bolt rear axle with an 8.2-inch differential, a setup shared with many of its GM cousins like Pontiac. Think of it as the unsung hero quietly turning brute force into street-smart performance. It wasn't the beefiest diff in the muscle car jungle, but it got the job done, like a reliable middle linebacker who never missed a tackle. Just enough grit to keep the rear end planted when things got rowdy. The 67 GS400 had presence, not just from rumbling its big block V8, but from its sheer physical size. Measuring a commanding 205 inches in length and 75.4 inches wide, this car didn't just roll onto the street. It arrived like a rock star stepping out of a fog machine. At 53.1 inches tall, it had a low, road-hugging stance that made it look like it was in motion even when parked. Riding on a 115-inch wheelbase, the GS400 offered a smooth, stable ride, like gliding on rails, only with more tire smoke. That long wheelbase also helped keep the car composed during high-speed romps and spirited cornering, even if it wasn't exactly carving up mountain switchbacks like a sports car. Curb weight? A solid 3,589 pounds. Buick wasn't building featherweights here. That mass gave it a planted feel, soaking up bumps and holding the road like a linebacker on loafers. It may have been heavy, but that's what gave it muscle car's gravitas. Like it was big, bold, and unafraid to throw its weight around. Kind of like an automotive version of a smooth-talking bouncer. Tough, cool, and always in control. The 67 GS400 was a muscle car with manners, a V8 brute in a sport coat. Its biggest strength? That monster 400 cubic inch big block under the hood, delivering 360 ponies and 400 foot-pounds of torque like it was handing out candy at a parade. It had the guts to go toe-to-toe with the muscle car giants, but with a Buick twist. Refinement. That ride was smoother than a Sinatra ballad, the cabin more comfortable than your favorite recliner, and the styling walked the line between brawler and boardroom. But it wasn't perfect. All that weight, 3,589 pounds of iron and attitude, meant it wasn't the quickest of the line compared to lighter competitors. Handling? Well, let's just say it was more about cruising a boulevard than conquering canyon curves. The optional safety features were a step forward, but still rudimentary by today's standards, and while Buick quality was top-notch, that meant a higher price tag, putting the GS400 in a strange spot. Too classy for budget brawlers, too wild for the country club crowd. Still, the GS400's strengths far outweighed its flaws. It was a refined muscle car that proved you didn't have to sacrifice style for speed, or comfort for chaos. The 67 GS400 was proof that muscle cars didn't have to be rough around the edges to pack a serious punch. It was the kind of ride that could lay rubber at a stoplight and still show up to dinner looking sharp. With its big block heart, bold design, and Buick's trademark smoothness, it walked the fine line between brute strength and gentlemanly swagger. This wasn't just a car, it was a muscle-bound diplomat on white-wall tires. So then I've got to ask, if you had to pick one, raw power or refined performance, would you take the GS400's blend of brawn and class, or would you go full bare knuckle with something less polished but more aggressive? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on the muscle versus manners showdown. And if you enjoyed this ride through muscle car history, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more classics, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next burnout-worthy blast from the past. Thanks for watching Retro Wheels Vault. Keep it loud, keep it classic.